All the sound is on. Talk again, Christian, real quick. Just gonna make sure sound is.
How close are you, Zach?
All right, we're going live in like 5 seconds, Eagle. Cool. Oh, all right. Okay, and in 3, 2, 1. What's going on, fellow Lego tubers, biotubers alike? It's me, Zach Kaplan. I'm here joined with my roommate Andrew, AllOutBrick, and Thrawn's Revenge, or ThrawnsTerminal from YouTube. We just watched last night's premiere of Season 2, Episode 1 of Lego Masters. It's amazing to have this show back. This was like a big part of our quarantine routine at the beginning of all of this, just watching this show every week. That was about like February or March last year, kind of when everything started. But yeah, it's amazing to see it back. Just like a recap of the show in general, I think it's really amazing that they're putting up front like these independent creators and showing that Lego is not just for kids, it's for all sorts of adults as well. And putting it in this like reality show format is just, I think, really smart, really brilliant, and yeah, just having it back. You know, last season was amazing. I loved Mark and Boone. I loved Tyler and the whole dynamic between every single group. And the winner, I think, was definitely well deserved. And seeing like Lego brought on to such like a public stage, especially on such a big network like Fox, you know, Will Arnett just kills it. You know, so yeah, in general, just like. I will say, I just have honestly, fallen in love with this show, as have, many other people. We have 14 concurrent viewers. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. We're trying to do this show weekly. So, let's just go on with talking about Season 2. Now, it looks like what they're really trying to do here is be, extremely diverse. They have, mothers, fathers, they have siblings, all sorts of different groups, and I just think it's kind of interesting to see that the family dynamic is something they're pushing even more. I think last season they're very much like a lot of people that were kind of honestly, I think pretty random. There were people that didn't even know each other, hadn't even met each other, that were pulled on, whereas this, you can tell, it's people that know each other, people that are very much familiar with each other. So yeah, honestly, pretty great. What did you think, Andrew, of just the premiere?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, I feel like they're kind of stepping it up with the production value in the show a little bit. I think they did some nice new touches to the studio, which looked great. And the teams were awesome. A lot of the builds were really strong, and I'm excited to see where the season goes. I'm excited for the next episode. I can't wait already.
Sweet. Yeah, I totally agree. AllOutBrick, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys said. They definitely got some upgrades too. They kind of played a little joke on that in the beginning of the first episode. They were the sequel's bigger, so we did this, and they made the joke they're $100,001. But yeah, I loved the first season of Lego Masters. I think it's cool that they had this kind of show out. I don't want to say a mock of the cooking competition shows, but it's just like that, but it's Lego, so it's just so enjoyable. And so many people are now being exposed to Lego that really haven't seen it built this way, or thought it could be this high of a potential. So it's really great for other people to see what's possible with it.
Totally, 100% agree. Thrawn, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
So what would you say? No worries, no worries.
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of the builders this time around brought up their game for sure. They could tell that the pressure was on from last season, because last season, you know, with the top, with the semifinalists especially, they knew that to get there into a good position, they had to bring their A game, and I can tell that they definitely started to practice before, which is I think a good idea.
Right, totally. Yeah, I think last season we really didn't know exactly what we were getting into. And I think, you know, it takes a lot to be able to look around the country, find people, because, you know, you have Instagram, you know, you have YouTube, but to find people that not only can build well, but build under pressure in a certain amount of time is something that makes this show, I think, in my opinion, really well made, as far as just the vetting of every person that comes on the show. You know, you got to have a good personality, you got to be good on camera. There's a whole bunch of work that goes into it, 110%. So with that said, let's kind of recap this episode. Now, what this episode's theme was a parade, right? So I think Jamie and Amy specifically said that they wanted the parade to kind of represent each personality of these team of builders. One of the big things I think they're pushing family forward is that a lot of these siblings or mother-daughter or mother-father or like two moms, the engineers I think were really interesting, like saying that, you know, push forward your personality, who you are in this parade float. Was like a super awesome concept, and I think a kind of a way to just like introduce you to the characters. You know, as we found out at the end, no one was going home. They did that same thing in the first episode of season 1. I think that's just a normal thing for all sorts of reality television. Yeah, what do you
the
say?
designers too for creating this specific competition. I really liked how it was presented with these sort of tables that then spun around this little Lego city that they had. I thought it was a really cool way of like actually showcasing all the builds.
Right.
At first, I thought, like, when they said motor functions were going to be a part of this build, I honestly thought that it would have to be the float moving as a part of that motor functions, not that it was just going to be, like, you know, given to them.
Yeah, I thought that too. Honestly, I was like, "Wait, you want the float to move?" And I was, yeah.
You could definitely tell some teams ran into a little bit of trouble because motor functions are like a whole nother aspect of building Lego that's like extremely difficult. Like you have Mindstorms, you have Technic, but oftentimes it's something that is very hard. It's very hard to like master and get good at. You know, you have to understand a lot of the mechanics. Which is why I'm surprised the engineers specifically like had as many problems as they did.
Yeah, that was honestly kind of funny. Like it was almost like they had like a mini like job check going on that they couldn't get the mechanical engineering working. It's like their special.
Yeah, as someone who did engineering, right? I think a big thing with engineers, right, is you don't do a lot of practical engineering anymore. It's a lot of like CAD design, right? And so I knew from the onset that they were going to, like, in your mind you can imagine what you want to accomplish, but actually accomplishing those functions is just a whole nother story, which definitely put a lot of pressure on the different builders, especially if you're like mostly a system builder, having to switch to Technic, and not only Technic, but understanding like simple functions and mechanics of like mechanisms. It's such a struggle to do right off the bat. Already a difficult challenge, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, I think they kind of had to combine.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
They know their game too, because like I think there was a line during the episode where they said, "These are all the people that were watching season 1, and we're." Or I can do that better. So it's like you kind of have to start with that first challenge of like, all right, let's just see how good these people really are and stage for everything.
Totally. What were you gonna say, Andrew?
Just that it was a good challenge to sort of demonstrate all of the criteria that they're going to be judging probably moving forward, you know, with motion, story, design, all of that stuff. So it's cool to see that kind of all encapsulated and to see which teams you think are kind of going to struggle with each of those different elements and which ones they excel at.
Yeah, totally. So let's go ahead and like look through as many of the teams as I know. AllOutBrick, I know you took some screenshots here. So let's go ahead and look at, we got the engineers. Now, I think this is fascinating not only because they hired two people that outside of just their hobby are legitimate engineers. I like their dynamic. Thrawn, do you know at all if like they knew each other before or if they were kind of one of those duos that was like interviewed separately and brought together?
I'm unsure. I've been trying to look into it a little bit more, because they're not releasing a lot, but I think that's on purpose because we'll probably find out more as the show progresses and we start getting proper interviews of them. Maybe it's possible that they were coworkers. Maybe they work in like the same area, and one of them wanted like someone else to bring with them.
Right.
I think we'll find out more. Definitely, like, one of the biggest issues for engineering, right, is again, as I said, taking your work that you do, which is usually nowadays mostly computerized, and turning it practical is definitely a struggle with a lot of people. Not that many engineers from that I've met doing engineering work do on-hand work anymore, because it's just so uncommon. So it's definitely, they'll have the know-how behind them, right, of like understanding the system and like how the different mechanics work. Their bigger struggle will be understanding that in the context of Lego. which is
Right.
so has its own limitations that they're probably not as aware of. Which, as you saw in the show, right, they didn't consider that, like, yeah, their builds were structurally strong. You could look at the build and it's like,
Right.
that's going to be hard to break, right? But due to the weight, it caused issues on what they were trying to implement.
Totally. I 100% agree. What about you, AllOutBrick?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I almost feel like that might be a false stereotype with engineering, though. I think it depends on what field like you're going into. Like, I'm a structural civil engineer, and they're civil engineers who only work in the field. They only do practical stuff, and I think it's probably the same for all disciplines of engineering. But I would agree that with all of the technology surging, yeah, there's a good chance that they are so theoretical and like you said, like they think of something and it's like, oh, well, we can make this work. Like it's just some gearboxes and stuff. But the material restraints with Legos and like just how much the bricks weigh versus how powerful those motors are, yeah, that's probably going to be a problem.
I agree.
Going forward, is what I'd imagine.
So let's move on to the next team that we had, which were Randall and Sarita. I thought they were great. I think them bringing up the growing up with hip hop and kind of this musical aspect to their build was super interesting. I think their little banter they had with the host was great too as well. I think it's good to see. Also, I don't know if these two builders knew each other before this. Did they? Do you guys remember?
Yeah, they did. They said that they have a shop together.
They have a whole shop. Awesome.
Yeah, and they do
Yeah, I
custom
like that
Legos.
they advertised that for them too. That was
Yeah.
some awesome free advertising.
That's a good way to show that the show is like that Lego Masters, the people at Fox behind the show are really looking for also like people that have created basically businesses, am I right? Like with Lego as well. I think that's super important. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed their chemistry and what they had to build. They weren't in the bottom two, so it'll be exciting to see what they do when they move on next, obviously. Anything else you guys want to say before I move on to the next team?
They definitely have the flair. I think they have the
Right.
passion and the drive, and
Colors.
creative. Yeah, the creative experiencing alone. I think they're going to excel really well. I think where they're going to struggle is going outside standard brick systems. I was looking through a little bit of their work that they have on their web store, and it's simplified, but I think it's simplified to cost right because they're working a business. You
Right.
have to be making a profit. Their builds are a little bit more simplified using more standard pieces, and they're probably going to be less likely to use, slopes, more complicated snot techniques, I'm assuming.
Right.
But it'll be definitely a challenge to go outside of like what they're used to in their own work. So it'll be fun to see them grow through this experience.
100%. And I think, that's a big thing about the people that they bring on this show. Not only are they somewhat experienced, but they want to see people essentially grow and learn, I think. When you are on a stage the size of this show, and given the amount of pieces that they allow you to have, it's definitely uncommon for any builder to, go through. I don't know. I would definitely say.
I wonder, do you think they give them any kind of I guess you would call it practice reps of just running through that system, or if they give them a practice build challenge before they start going of okay,
Right.
this is the studio setup, so you can get familiar with where everything is and everything like that.
I think they had some B-roll where they cut to when they were introducing some of the teams. I saw some builds that seemed outside of this particular challenge, so there might have been something they captured when they got there.
Right.
Sort of giving them
I mean,
space to do that.
Thrawn, some people that were trying out for the show. You said oftentimes they will sometimes give them a period of time to build, apparently, and I think that's a part of the casting process. Is I'm sure they put you under the pressure.
But yeah, I'm not sure 100%, but I do feel that they're definitely going to have to do some practice beforehand, right, to be able to understand how the teams work together, how they're able to be handling themselves on camera. So I think that kind of stuff was definitely done ahead of time.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of makes sense. You have to be put under pressure. You can show people the builds, but they want to know how fast can you make that. Given the time that they put on these people, can you really make it work? Obviously.
Camera-friendly personalities and stuff like that would also be very important.
Something that I found really interesting about the show, the process of how it works. When they get those builds, they split them up over several production days, and when you're not actually building and that clock is ticking, they're apparently super strict with either brainstorming with your building partner or trying to go through something about trying to
Yeah.
improve your build, like they're super strict with that apparently. Like those 14 hours are like a legit 14 hours, but it's not like they're sitting there in the studio for 14 hours straight.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, let's look at our next team. Next we had Michelle and Natalie. They did the one build that had like, because they're the paint build, right? Because they're very colorful, and that's like a part of the thing is they're like carpenters and like painters, and so I kind of appreciate their dynamic. I think last time we had a very similar team with two girls, friends, came onto the show. Did they know each other beforehand as well? Do you guys remember?
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah.
They were like friends.
That's definitely more common this season. I don't know if about you guys, but last season it was a lot of like random people that hadn't really worked with each other before brought together. So that's nice seeing that they're doing that. I liked their build personally. I thought, it was cool to see the way they did the paint dripping down, and like in general it's just very tight set. It didn't like try too hard or do anything too crazy. It was just like beautiful to look at. Definitely represented like their personalities, their hobbies.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent too, like with the paint coming over like the buckets. And did you see like the little like paint palettes or like paint sampling papers that they made as a part of their build? I thought that was so cool to include something like that.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up. Thrawn, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought they did really well showing the personality aspect. And you could definitely tell that from their experience, right? Because I'm looking at the LEGO website right now. Under occupations, they're both freelance video producers and custom furniture makers.
Oh,
so you
wow.
can see that they're very detail-oriented, and they understand like, putting in the craftsmanship and the work. The place where I thought they struggled for this episode was definitely the motion, right? The motion was very simplistic. It was just the top spinning. I think they could have done more, but I have a feeling they're probably not very used to the Technic system, so they couldn't get something as complicated as they probably would have envisioned.
Yeah, like imagine like if they had like the paint bucket tipping, and it had like some sort of system where like it looked like it was coming out, and then when it tilted back up, gravity like brought it back into the can or something like that.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. Let me see if I can pull up. Oh, here it is. Yeah, this was the build. Pretty great. Yeah, I feel like that's a big thing. Again, like this show goes. This is awesome, work, obviously. Like, I even really like the little color palettes, the little, like, papers they have of just, like, what you would find at, like, even, like, a Home Depot when selecting, like, paint colors. But you can tell with a lot of these teams that they have growing to do. And I think through this entire season, through this process, you're going to see that. It's kind of an interesting part of this show, no doubt.
Did you guys like figure it out or not? Like I saw those parade float bases that they had, and that they had the studs on the front, like on the top. Obviously, it looks like they had studs on all the sides. Like, did anyone else pick up? They actually had the studs going all the way around the side of that.
They did, yeah. So what they did is they used the like snot bricks, the side connections, and they just plated the whole thing all the way around. So they covered the light gray metal, I think it was, like metal table.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that light gray had the studs on the sides or not, because I know it had it on the top, but it seemed like everyone. Okay.
Yeah, which is smart of them. Definitely, you want to make it look as Lego-ified as possible.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a thing. That's a big thing I like about this show is when they have these builders that come in and do stots, right? It's pronounced like stots, which is like studs on the side.
Yeah, studs not on top.
Yeah, studs not on top. Yeah, that's how it goes. That's how it goes. All right, let's see if I can pull up another one of these teams here. I guess we could start talking about them now. But I liked, and my mom's now a fan of the show. She watches it. She's was a big fan of like the mom duo. That was like a bit.
The Utah mom.
Yeah, the Utah moms. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, Susan and Jen. I liked their build. The problem is like, and this is where it goes to show, he's like, they're very talented, know how to work with Lego, but then I think one of the wheels stopped working or something, right?
A rear wheel drive.
And like, it sucks that like all it takes is that, but like that's the way like Jamie and Amy are so very intense about the way that they judge things that like you mess up one thing and you're totally screwed.
I was impressed with how quickly theirs came together though. Like it seemed like obviously editing can play with exactly when they started to get their idea, but it seemed like there wasn't that much time left when they started to like figure out like, okay, this is actually what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I think that they struggled with the pressure and sort of reconceptualizing, because I think they had a bigger plan with like a movement of the swan coming out of the egg as well, or something like that. And
Yeah,
they had
here
to
I can pull
start
it
over.
up.
So I'd be
There it
curious to
is,
see how
yeah.
they do next week. Maybe if they manage their time a little bit better, what they could do.
Yeah, it really comes down to managing time, but like just looking at the photo, I mean, it's definitely a cool build. But
I
you
mean, all
know,
of them. Yeah, everyone on the
a
show
lot
is
of the
great.
studs on the side, you know, and I think, and you know, of course, they want to tell the story like we're mothers. Let's like find like you know an image, an allegory, if you will, of that, which is great. You know, this show it appeals to everyone. Like my mom watched this and loved that team, obviously because you know she's a mom, and I think like them leading into that and really getting diverse with the people they bring on is a good thing for a show like this. 110%.
Yeah, definitely. I think the main thing that they struggled with was getting the conceptual. They got it down right, and the concept is really good, and the artistic interpretation that they brought was really good. They ended up getting stuck on the contraption for the egg opening,
Right.
which you know, if again, it's coming down to the like, if you're not used to the system and you're over ambitious on what you want to attempt, you're gonna struggle, especially
Yeah.
as Jamie said, when you get stuck and you are running out of time, it puts more pressure on having to redesign a system that you had assumed was going to work. And that definitely, I think, brought them down a lot, because that got in the way of both redesigning, and then it ended up screwing them over with the wheel system. I don't think they had time, because
Right.
in the when they were working on the base, right, you saw that there was space for where the swan and the egg system was going to be.
Totally.
But they ran out of time and were trying to get the wheels to spin and didn't have the spacing inside of there to connect the rest of the axle together, so it stopped working.
Right. Okay, and then we have our next team. These were the twins, and I love these guys a lot. I think it's going to be fun to see what they can do moving forward. What do you guys say about this new kind of like, again, another like sibling duo? Like, it's really cool to see.
I love their model. What they came up with, like that expedition with all the different small details. I thought some of those smaller builds were really good, like the camera, the Lego brick that was on top of their tower.
Yeah, you can tell these guys are going to be, I think, strong storytellers in a lot of their builds.
Right. Let me see if I
It
can
like
pull it
came.
up.
There was a whole story and journey that was in that build.
It was this
and
one, right?
The tower, yeah.
It's Caleb and Jacob, right?
Yeah, Caleb and Jacob.
Yep.
Ishla.
They're both college students.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what it says as their occupation under the Lego website.
Color students?
Good for them.
College students.
Oh,
They're both
college.
yeah, they're both in
College
college.
students.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah,
great. Oh
they
yeah, here's
definitely
their
had
build.
a really good story. I think the story definitely helped, and they had some of the systems that they were implementing. I was pretty impressed by. I was disappointed in the editing, because you could see in the video that there's like a dog inside of that big wooden, big wooden
Oh,
structure,
really?
and it's supposed to pop out, but I didn't see it pop out in the editing.
Yeah,
I
they
didn't
showed
see
it in
the
like
video.
that animation with the whole background, but then when they never showed it like on the actual like parade path, I was like, wait, is that
Really?
a thing or no? Like,
Oh, I had no
definitely would've liked
idea.
to see that.
I didn't even notice that, but I mean, Thrawn, of course, you definitely would notice that. Let's see. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, and then we had, there's the mom and dad couple, right? And they were in like the bottom two.
The bikers, right?
Well, there's
Bikers.
the bikers are the siblings. Right now, I'm
Siblings,
pulling
mom
up.
and dad?
Yeah,
Oh, the couple.
yeah, they're a couple. They like their whole story is that they it's like they still tell stories to their kids, and they wanted to do like story time, basically, right?
Very, very wholesome couple.
the sheep.
Yeah, here they are. This is them. They did the I'll pull up their build in a second, but this couple, they did like the reading the sheep. I would say again, like great dynamic, but it made sense that they kind of got the bottom of the build,
Yeah.
you know.
They definitely had,
struggled.
Again, the story aspect, because as it says on the Lego website, she's a former teacher, so she has the work with the kids, right, which brings out the creativity aspect of it. But I think definitely where they struggled was the construction and the, going larger than life kind of design systems that maybe more experienced mockers would be used to. They're probably not as accustomed to.
Right.
Yeah, they did struggle with that. It seemed like I mean, I'm excited for when they do get some of those, if they make it far enough to where they get some of those models where they get to do like extremely like detailed, smaller things like as a part of their build. But yeah, like their float definitely had some spare areas that were like, they're definitely not comfortable with making something take up this much space.
Yeah,
I did
here
love
it
the
is.
design of the sheep though, so I'm curious to
Yeah,
see
here it is.
The sheeps were great. The sheeps
right?
were great.
Yeah, these little sheep. Very cute. That's hard to make too, just to be able to like make it all around. Like it looks even from like far away, like really nice and detailed on that. Just was a little flat, and I think like the Technic piece holding up the sheep is like could have been a little bit reworked. You know, they just used gray
maybe, like,
Technic.
put like something around it so that it's not clearly just the Technic beams.
Yeah, I think
Covering it up a little bit more.
kind of missed the mark with the movement on it, because it's like you look to it and you would imagine there'd be some movement with the sheep, and that seems so critical to it. Without that, it doesn't. It's just not as strong as some of the other builds.
No, totally. It's gonna be a thing going forward too. Is like it's gonna become easier to see like under pressure which of these teams is more, you know, built to last, built to like make it, you know, further on, and then some that are going to be like showing definitely a little more of the weaknesses, which is hard to say obviously because they're all amazing, but that's how it goes. Let's see. Let's transition over to Jack and Dawn. Now, they were like some of my favorite, very cute siblings, right? I believe, which is like really fun to see like an elder pair of siblings. Like they've grown up together for so long. He's a biker. And their story is very personal and touching. You know, they wanted to make a tribute to the little girl who like passed away at a young age, and so bringing on a team like this, I think was super important. You know, it adds to this like wholesome content and also emotional as well. It's interesting. Their build, you know, you expect the judges, Jamie and Amy, to be a little more loose, but like even Jamie at the end had some negative things to say, and it's like it goes to show you, man, it doesn't matter. Like these judges are gonna call it for what they see.
Yeah, if they had been able to
Yeah,
pull
it
off,
was like. Now go ahead.
I would say if they were able to pull off the wings moving, I think it would have elevated the build to the next level.
It was really cool.
Because it was a great build, all in all.
Yeah.
I think just the movement was a
It was
little
like
underwhelming.
unfortunate watching like when they were saying that they were gonna make the wings flap. They showed the wing construction. It was like those are gonna be really heavy, and then they showed just those single like dishes rotating. It was like okay, like that. I don't see how that's gonna.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was gonna happen. Definitely, like switching to a cam system would have helped them greatly. That it just didn't have enough torque to be able to move those wings.
The butterfly itself looks great though.
Oh, the butterfly was
Yeah,
really
the
good,
eyes-
very colorful.
The
And the
flickering eyes were really cool in there too.
And the work
LEDs
around the
on the
base, I really liked as well.
Definitely.
And then who do we have next? Oh yeah, Mark and Steven. Were they brothers or they were just like good friends?
They're brothers.
They're brothers.
Yeah.
Wow, it's just so many just like
Family
siblings. It's a family affair
Do you
this
think
season.
that it had something to do with COVID and that when they went to conduct tryouts, like there just wasn't
maybe.
like they tried to kind of keep it within.
That's pretty.
I don't
That's
know.
actually a pretty interesting point. I'd agree that's probably was a big thing. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know. Do you agree, Thrawn? Like that could be another reason. I think family
Yeah,
dynamics
I
are
have a
definitely
feeling.
watchable, and it gets like to have a family, you know, show on television gets people more interested and connected when they're all related, obviously. But
Also, the whole like family aspect is very important to Lego, so I can definitely see why they would want to bring that up. You know, because Lego started as a family business and was mostly passed down generation through generation, so that's probably like a big deal for them.
and they did the world
these are the
serpent.
guys who-
Yeah.
They build competitively. They said they highlighted how they beat the season 1 winners in a previous challenge. Like I
Oh,
swear.
are they well known? Thrawn, do you know it all?
So yep, they are well known. So on Flickr, they both have really large Flickr accounts, and their builds that are on there, as I was looking
we
last
go.
night, oh my good lord, they have been featured on both Brothers Bricks and Beyond the Brick. I think for their Flickrs, it's Mark of Falworth and Brother Steven are both on Flickr. You can see some of their stuff. It's really impressive work. It's really large, really
Right.
detailed. They seem to be towards more a little bit of a castle style, seems to be their kind of system. But the castle work that they've done, on like
Oh,
the structure
man.
of the castles. It's beautiful masonry. and
Christian,
it's-
are you
I'm
are you
looking at it
checking
right
it out
now.
right now?
Yeah. Dude, it's insane.
It's nuts.
I mean-
It's really nuts.
They're going to be some team to watch out for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Wow.
Okay. And let's see who. Yeah, I mean, I thought also
These
there.
guys I thought were the most.
Yeah, then there's
Dave and Richard.
Dave and Richard.
I love
them.
their
I-
what
yeah.
they came up with.
Mm-hmm. I thought they had the most underrated build. I was surprised to not see it in the final two. I mean, both of the final two were really
Same here.
strong.
Yeah,
but
Dave and Richard.
This was one of my favorites, I think.
Which one was theirs again? Let
The
me pull
hot
it up.
dog and the pizza.
It was the Chicago
the
hot
food
dog and the New York
one.
pizza. Yeah.
I was disappointed they didn't show it as much. It got like
Mm-hmm.
one shot in the actual episode of the final build. I mean, just like you said, Andrew, like I thought it should have been like in the
Oh,
top two.
yeah.
I had it as an underdog.
That's true. I remember while watching being like, this is one we got to talk about. Oh, that's nuts
Yeah.
that like it didn't get talked about more. I guess, there's so many contestants. How much time do
Yeah.
they really have? They want to get to the drama. Yeah, let me pull it up. This was
I also feel that another reason that they were probably foreshadowed by other builds is because the movement wasn't as impressive as some of the other people's designs.
right.
Because the movement was just mostly the Chicago and New York letters like rotating, where a lot of others did like much more complicated systems than just rotation.
It
They
was simple, but I felt that it was almost the most effective movement. That was actually one of the things
Yeah,
I was
they
so
got-
impressed with.
they
Because I think it just
definitely
tells
had a
the
lot of
story. Yeah.
right. They
I
tell a
felt the same way with New
story.
York, Chicago.
And it's literally them. They made figures for themselves. It's kind of Mark and Boone. I get like Mark and Boone vibes with these guys.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to
Yeah.
hear they'd only just started working together, so they don't know each other that well.
So they're a new duo.
Yeah. One of the few like unrelated duos.
Now, up next, it's Tim and
wait.
Zach. Let me see.
I got more on them actually.
Oh, yeah, no, let
Actually,
us know.
Dave is well known also for Brothers Brick. He does a lot of like vignette builds,
Okay.
and he does very good detailed work. You can find his work at, I think it's Dave Kalita is his handle, and the other one, what's his name? Hold on. Richard, right? Richard's actually a DJ and has his own tracks out on his own website as well.
Right.
So they got like an interesting dynamic there, of like one I think brings a lot more of the artistic design, and the other one brings the like design, right?
Cool.
Okay, now we can move on.
Yeah.
No
I'm
worries.
excited to see what they come up with.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they come up with too. Next, we have the father and son duo, Tim and Zach. That's great. I think they had a father-son duo on the last season as well.
I don't think they did.
It was like
They got eliminated
but they're
early.
older.
they got eliminated
they were
very
older.
early. Remember, it was like his
Oh,
old
yeah,
dad.
Yeah. Yep. Now I remember.
Yeah, it was. I remember that was a big thing. Was like they wanted that emotion of the father son, but they were asked to leave pretty early. Tim and Zach though, okay, I kind of forget. There were so many. I forget which build was theirs. Was
They
it
had the
Theirs
Four
was the
Seasons
seasons,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
with the clock tower.
Clock
Yeah.
Tower? Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
the clock tower. The design of the clock tower I really liked. The like
Maybe we
faces
don't
on it,
have it
and the
here.
concept of the clock tower rotating.
This
to
is
face
it?
the different
No, that
seasons
was theirs.
was
Yeah, I guess I
very
don't have
clever.
the photo of this one.
But I definitely agree with the judges. It was very
it is.
cluttered.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot going on
Wait.
around it,
Yeah.
which I
That
think was
one.
Definitely
in the
a ton
way.
of many-
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one was crazy. There's so many trees and plants. Huh. Yeah, I could see how that would like definitely be a little distracting. Which must have been a note that they gave them from what I can recall.
The concept is so great too. Doing something with 4 seasons that can be so visually distinct.
Yeah,
I was
here it
excited
is.
to see what they would
Yeah.
come up with, but I felt a little bit I felt like it was a little bit cluttered and hard to read that from just the model itself.
Right. That's another thing that's like, especially later on in the season, if they go off kind of what happened to season 1, is that these people that are like very good builders, no doubt, start to clutter things up or like kind of have repetition. Like this is a great little tower, but the tower itself, has same face on either side, just kind of trees on the bottom, just so many people. It's like almost diverts your eyes to too many directions. But they weren't even
Yeah,
they weren't in the bottom two.
It's the same with art, I think, as well. Readability and flow is very important when working on art pieces, right? So you need to be able to move your eye between point A to point B to point C. And as some of these builders will get on later, right, it's going to be very important to showcase the ability to be able to get that good flow, like a good design structure for your whole system. And I think they're definitely going to struggle with that, of like trying to wow the judges by stuff and less by how you design the stuff and the importance of like negative space.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I agree. Then next we had, this was another sibling duo. They did the, was it the, yeah, Lauren and Brian sibling story time. Let me pull that one up. This was pretty simple, but it definitely tells a story. Let me see. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the Rapunzel one.
Yeah, it's like Rapunzel. Anything you guys have to say about their build before I talk at all? Or... Yeah, here it is.
I mean, I thought it was cool. It didn't. I feel like the angle they showed, like right there, it doesn't give the hair like that. Like I imagine the hair is wrapping around. I feel like if we saw the hair wrapping around more, it would have made like a little bit more sense as a viewer. But you kind of can't tell completely that he's hanging onto her hair just from this angle.
Right.
A lot of camera unfriendly angles, I think, that ended up being in the way for their build. It was definitely simplistic. I think it was like the most kind of vanilla-ish out of all of them. It had like good concepts and stuff, and the build was really well executed and really large, but I didn't see anything outstanding other than the size. A lot of good coloring. The kind of cylinder was pretty impressive to see. Cylinders are not easy to do in LEGO, especially without gaps. And I think they got pretty close to almost a gapless cylinder.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how their design is going to be more tested as the next episodes come out.
Cool. And I think besides the guys who won, we've gone through pretty much every contestant so far, right?
I'm not the Dragons team.
I'm not forgetting everyone except for
Zach and Wayne.
Yeah, I was waiting. I'm waiting to talk about that because I think they're probably going to win this. Let's be honest. These guys, here's what's interesting. Let me pull up the photo that I wasn't expecting, them to like bring up. They're like sushi connoisseur, or like they are sushi chefs.
Yeah.
So I mean, their attention to detail, I think, just talks within their Lego, I guess, Lego work ethic.
Yep.
You could say. Thrawn, have you seen them on Beyond the Brick? Have they been around for a while?
Zach has been featured Beyond the Brick before. He was the guy, if you guys have seen the video before, he did the M1 Abrams bridge layer. So that model is very impressive. Less on the design aspect and more on the mechanics and systems that were implemented for that. It was using 2 S-bricks connected to a phone.
Cool.
That he made custom inputs for. So they are definitely going to be ones to watch out for. In terms of winning, I think the area where they're going to lack is a lot of the detail. Their model was incredibly impressive, and the way it moved definitely wowed the judges. And for an event that requires movement, that's where they definitely won. Where I think they're going to struggle is the more complex, sleek, beauty elemented builds, where it's going to be focused on artistic interpretation. The 2 brothers that when they were building, right, that beat the original from season 1, right? They have that part down. I think they got screwed over because of the fact that they didn't focus it more on them and was more of an afterthought, it feels like. So these 2 are definitely going to be butting their heads a lot, and it'll be really fun to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they build next.
Let's see. We have a bunch.
So
we have
impressive.
a bunch of photos of their stuff.
Yeah, they featured it very heavily.
Yeah, here it is. There we go.
It's always interesting to see which models too get the little stop motion animation treatment.
Yeah. These didn't, right?
No, they did. They did. I think they did. It wasn't.
It's because there's so much good movement already with this build.
This one got one.
Soaring Dragon,
so did the
man.
Tower. The brothers made.
This thing was just epic. I remember as soon as my roommates and I saw it, we were like, "Yeah, this is the winner of this episode, potentially even this season."
Yeah, that cam system they implemented is very clever to be able to get the
Right.
beams to rotate.
That takes insane amount of just like the intellect there and the idea that you
Yeah.
have to like.
They definitely have that technic know-how behind them. for
They
sure.
definitely grew up with some Bionicle. There's no doubt.
And the story was
Absolutely.
cool too.
They
Yin and
definitely
Yang
had the
brothers.
Puku crab, right?
Yeah, they definitely learned their mechanisms from that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say if the idea was to create a float, this seems as if literally like a float that would be in like a Chinese New Year parade or something,
Yeah.
or like there's
Yeah,
That-
they said some of their inspiration even came from. They said like in Chinese festivals, all the time you see the dragons going through the clouds, and they were gonna do their spin on it.
right. Let's see if I can find like another angle. I mean, yeah, look at all these. I don't even know which one to choose. Oh, this one's pretty good. Here we go. I mean, this like I think the float itself too kind of had like a lot of layers, where with the other ones, I guess it's not gonna let me pull up. Nope, it's not gonna let me pull up anything else. But where other builds kind of like failed is like setting an environment on the float itself that like feels natural to not just grass and not just a field. This is like they put the clouds, right, and they had it almost in my opinion seems like there's people inside the float operating the dragons. Honestly, is like another kind of way I was able to interpret it.
Yeah, the clouds definitely helped remove some of the technic beams, which was a very smart idea
Yeah,
on
which
their
can
part.
steal
It's
your
like
focus.
try to get rid of the focus off of the mechanism and
we
more
go.
of the focus on like the bright colors of the dragons
Right.
and the movement.
Here's a good way to look at it too. It's like under the blue dragon, you can tell they were like melding in the white with the gray. They have a little bit of like plant, a little bit of like leaves, but nothing like major, really distracting you from like the main point, obviously,
Yeah.
which is like the dragons.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, look at that. Oh my god, epic. So I mean, Thrawn, would you or Andrew, would you agree kind of with like the judges' decisions this time around, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked about it a little bit earlier, but the only one that I felt didn't get enough attention was the Chicago New York one.
Yeah, the pizza and the food.
That I thought would have been awesome to feature as well, especially because like both of the top builds kind of featured dragon-like elements, I guess. The serpent and the dragon, somewhat you could say are similar. So it would have been nice to see the judges choose another build that was a little less different than
Totally.
like that. But I mean, I think all the contestants came out really strong this time around. I don't have any doubts in any of them, so I'm excited to see what they can all come to the table and build next. I'm
Totally.
excited for, I don't know if we want to talk about next week's episode at all, too.
The
I think-
explosion
yeah,
episode.
explosion. I'm very excited for that. I remember from the first season, it was like spaceships getting
They
destroyed.
did like a drop and
was
then
either
also
drop,
a bat.
yes,
Yeah, or to
smash.
hit it with a bat, you had to like choose one, or you got assigned one. So, I think the demolition challenge is like an especially fun way to work with Lego, and I love how the playback of the demolition is going to be a factor of like how does it break apart. I
Right.
love that element of it.
Some of my favorite episodes of last season were the like explosion one, the tower building, like how high can you go without falling, but then of course the bridges, how much weight can your Lego
Yeah.
hold. That stuff was so good. Like that's an episode I would show like my parents. It's an episode I would show anyone, the intensity of that, getting that sort of a build. Yeah, and I think that's it. Did we get all the contestants, all the builds? That's pretty solid. So
We did.
let me go ahead and turn it to the chat. I know there's a lot of Bionicle chats. What are you going to do? But let's see. Okay, Odd Dude says, I wish they'd focused a bit more on actual building in the show. They gave very brief snapshots at a time of what's being made and the process behind it. I agree with that. Was kind of like a thing I said during the first season. And the problem is, you only have 43 minutes, 45 minutes. To show every single moment of them building would literally take hours. Like, it's an 8-hour build, 10, 12-hour build. They just don't have time for that. In a 43-minute, you have to cut so much that if you were to, like, probably take snippets of the actual building in this show, it'd probably be, like, 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Because where the drama lies is in looking at the builds and then seeing the teams interact, and then the judges, their opinions, like kind of breaking down on it. And then obviously like the backstories, and banter between, the contestants, interviews. Think about all those things. It's the actual building gets tough. Although I will say, season 1, there were moments where like Jamie and Amy, for instance, would like take a break while the teams were building and explain what studs not on top is and all this stuff, and like how like and greebling, they got into like greebling and all this stuff. So definitely getting into like Lego like culture and also just terms for building. So it's something like I think to like get into definitely down the line and with further episodes, no doubt.
Yeah. I think it's so tough with the introductory episodes too, because there's so many teams you have to focus on that when it does start to whittle down, it's like, okay, now we have a little bit of extra airtime to play with in the edit. That I think that stuff definitely should come back, and I'm not sure if like they start to see other people saying like, well, how come they're not talking about this, like how much they can change the edit from now until air date.
Yeah. Chris Raptor Studios, maybe the real Lego Masters were the friends we made along the way. Connor Nuva, imagine a group joining in who have never built Lego before, yet they end up winning the whole show. I mean, it'd be funny just to see for maybe an episode of just people that have never built with Lego, or like have kids do it. But then you have adult fans of Lego that are gonna be like, what is this? It's like a waste of time.
I really liked the episode last year when they had a bunch of kids come to the
kids
studio
come
and they
in.
like put an extra challenge on their build.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like the kids had like a say in what models were gonna be in the top 2, bottom 2 type of thing.
Yeah, that was cool. So hopefully they bring back some more like Lego amateurs or young kids.
Clips Film Melbourne says, you heard about LegoCon, many mocks, and I wonder if Lego designers will get unique ideas. Yeah, I'm excited for that. LegoCon, if you guys don't know, is an online, obviously still we're in the pandemic, an online convention where they're going to announce new sets, have interviews. It's a lot of the people that have been behind Lego Masters, apparently. I don't know, Thrawn, if you know too much more else about it. It's like, I think it's going to be their version of like a Comic-Con in a way, very minimal, but like announcements for projects, announcements for things coming.
Yeah, I think they said it's only going to be about an hour or two.
Right.
So basically expect like a Nintendo event that they do every so often,
Or like an Xbox event, or
where it's like they're gonna show some things, they're gonna have some people talk about like different Lego stuff, they're gonna show some new products obviously, but I don't think it's gonna go anything further than that unless it starts getting really popular and they actually do want it to be a convention like BlizzCon and stuff like that, where you can actually, show up, talk to
I want to.
designers
That would be awesome. It'd be like BrickCon, but like more official and probably more expensive.
Probably.
Republic gunship reveal. That's
know.
I'm really hoping.
I'm
for
sure Thrawn wants that too.
No, I'm waiting for that AT-AT UCS set that was leaked.
Well, then it's definitely coming if it was
Honestly,
leaked.
That UCS AT-AT, I am so interested to see, number one, when it gets confirmed that it is an AT-AT, and then two, how they do that.
Yeah,
I'm built like an AT-AT UCS scale, and it's so, I can't imagine Lego releasing something that's not stable enough, and when you just build it at that size, it's like, I hope they make the legs too thick.
Right.
They kind of have to without, unless otherwise we'll be like, well, this isn't stable.
Odd Dude
I have a feeling the
21.
legs wouldn't move much.
Odd Dude 21 says, I wonder if they went home at night and build to prepare. I don't know. Now, here's the interesting thing. It's like, how do they produce this show, right? Like, if the build is I think it was 8 hours this time around
14.
or something.
It was 14 hours.
14. So it's like, that has to be 2 days. Now, if they stop mid-build, I don't know about that. I think they probably do explain what they're going to do and give them time, right? I mean, as like a producer, what would you say how they most likely shoot something like this?
I feel like, when you start to get into those wee hours, you're starting to spend a lot more money. So I think it makes sense that they would probably break it up between 2 days. But then again, I don't know how much they want to be authentic to the rules of
like with editing, it's probably no problem if like they do like the beginning of the episode, which is probably 2 or 3 hours, and then 7 hours of the first half of the build. Say hands up, kind of like what they do at the end. Cut cameras, and then they pick up the next morning. All right, ready guys? Like 10 a.m. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now back at it. Film the other 7 hours, and then the ending, with like the judging.
But like, what do you do? Like, what if someone at whatever room they're staying in, what if they have a laptop with like Studio or LDD. Like,
Right.
Part of me genuinely
That's
feels
what
like it
Abed's
is
saying.
14 hours that they're there for sometimes.
Yeah,
'Cause
part
I
of
do
me
think
thinks
it
it
would be
might
kind of
be.
hard to bring everyone back and keep that energy going, you know?
I don't know, Thrawn, would
But-
you say you probably
I
maybe
mean,
agree with Andrew? It's
so
probably a full 14 hours.
My thought process is watching the way that they cut the episode. I think it's 4 different days because with good workflow, right? If you're sitting down and you have a full 14 hours, you're going from hour 1 to hour 14. You would have enough time to be able to change and modify things as you go. I think what they're doing, right? Because the way it's cut, like let's take the mom team, right?
Right.
You could see that there were different cuts where they were kind of at the same position that they were in 3 or 4 hours ago. So it feels like they put enough distance in between each couple of hour session where they give them time to kind of think about the process. The downside is that cuts your workflow so much that you have to restart you're basically restarting a motor every single time, which is probably part of the challenge is the stop start.
Right.
You know?
Also, the time it takes to stand out of the chair, go over to the bins, the hundreds of bins of pieces, and find where things are. Like, I feel like they must have a day or two where they just bring all the builders through the studio and like show them where like the studs are, where the flat pieces are, where Technic is, where yellow is, blue is. That's wild, actually, to even think about. Let's see. Lego Masters COVID Edition says Kainuva. Yeah, I think. I hope LegoCon is a success. I totally agree.
They're going to talk about Lego Star Wars? The game.
Lego Star Wars, the game. Hopefully they acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, sorry, it's been a year and a half since we thought it would come out.
Zach and I have
Didn't
been
people
dying to do a
pre-order
playthrough.
Yeah, people pre-ordered it, man. People are
Lots of
annoyed.
people pre-ordered it.
But it's because they want to make sure it's good. They don't want to deal with a Cyberpunk or something.
That's good. I mean,
BioScrawl says, I have a feeling Zach and Wayne are going to make it pretty far. 100%. I'm excited to see what they do. That's a possibility.
I can do that in the Bionicle episode. I hope so. That would be
Bionicle
cool, but I don't
special?
think so.
No. Or the most they would maybe do is it's Technic only or episode or like Mindstorm style. No
I hope
bricks.
someone just named theirs like Takanuva or be like, well, I made Matsunui. Like,
I don't doubt that down the line we will get one contestant who like at least does some sort of Bionicle mocking and brings up, oh yeah, you know, I was raised like with Bionicle, I always loved it. Because like they had that with the Lego Star Wars episode, is they had like one of the teams was like, I grew up with Lego Star Wars, so this is in my wheelhouse, you know, like I wouldn't doubt it that down the line after a couple seasons someone's gonna bring it up. Because these are people our age.
Do you think they're gonna do like a centralized theme challenge again? Like last year we had the Lego Star Wars one. Do you think they could do something like that just as like an advertisement? Like what if they were like, well, we're gonna make a Ninjago challenge this week? Or
Ooh,
something?
yeah, I could see that.
I could see like I could see like a superheroes maybe.
Marvel, maybe?
A Marvel, but like Ninjago is a theme of Lego, and I don't think they
Yeah.
would do that
I
specifically.
think we would more likely see like a return to classics. It's like maybe they're like, ooh, a classic castle or like
Classic
classic
space.
Yeah,
Yeah,
classic
yeah,
train.
yeah.
I could see that coming back, and maybe them doing a limited set release related to that. That would be big brain marketing plays.
Speaking of classic, does anyone know when they're announcing the 90th anniversary?
Who knows? It could be at LegoCon, but I feel like that'd be really
Yeah.
early since it's not going to be another 7-8 months after LegoCon for that set to even be released.
Right.
Bionicle.
Sadly, I think Bionicle is very niche. It definitely, you know,
they don't
you have
care.
a lot of people who are nostalgic about it, but
Even if it
it's
won
gonna
the
be hard.
votes, right?
Yeah,
I
even
know.
if
I
it
mean,
won the
we
votes,
still
I
get
don't know.
Dakotas in a month from now.
Yeah,
So that's cool.
I'm gonna buy that for sure. Odd Dude 21 says like between the 2 days they could go home, use their own Lego to mock. Yeah, no, exactly what we were talking about. I don't think they do that. I actually
do you
think
think that there's some sort of restriction, especially with COVID? They could have put in whatever restrictions they wanted to. Of like, obviously they would say like, well, you're gonna stay here, and here's what you're allowed to bring with you, and we're gonna check that this is what you have.
right. Maybe they send them with a little camera team to spy on them.
We need a contestant to come on and
Yeah,
the
give us some of the
secrets.
scoop. I'm sure there's a lot they want to be able to say. I was talking to brother from another brick. He new a contestant. I don't know if we'll be able to have him on, but like as we keep doing this show weekly, I think, you know, we'll find areas to improve and hopefully start reaching out to more people and bring more people on. Nitron says an episode where people build a Lego City scenario, but like for a future episode, a Lego City Adventures to be based around. That's interesting. Again, I think like Lego's thing is they don't want to advertise necessarily their own IP as much as like a Star Wars episode. Obviously, it's like beyond just like their IP. It's a famous movie franchise, you know, so that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if I could totally. I mean, they might run out of ideas, but I don't totally see if they would have like a whole episode based off of Lego Creator or City or Ninjago or Monkey Kid.
They did do Lego. They did Skyscrapers
Right.
last season, which was as close.
But that's
as you
more
could
of
get.
like an engineering theme or
Yeah.
like, you know, something like to go
Yeah.
off.
I really
Bridges.
enjoy
That
the
was so
city.
cool.
Yeah, Bridges was a great episode.
Yeah. I love when in last season the builds when they were all presented, they were next to each other, and like by bringing the builds into the presentation, like you had this like model that was 10 times as big as just anyone's individual model because it was like placed within the actual displays thing. Like I think in one of the first episodes they did last year was the theme park, and they
Yeah.
had like a roller coaster that they'd pre-built going through the whole thing, which really was like a
That
cool
was
way to
great.
put all of these modular builds into it, and it like makes
yeah,
this really
yeah.
cool end product.
Kyler Nuva,
Yeah,
would
there was-
Obi-Wan's high ground count as a skyscraper? I have
certain
the high
point of view.
ground. From a certain point of view, yes. All right, let me think of ways we could like wrap this up. So I guess, Thrawn, let's go to you, then let's go to AllOutBrick, and then us, and like our final thoughts of the way the new season's going, the structure, and the episode.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I'm excited to see a lot of these teams, like what the best of the best of what they could do is. It's definitely, you know, it was the introduction. We didn't get as much, you know, brick related stuff and a lot more of like who they are, what they do, their personalities, which
Yeah.
is a very great way of starting the show for like, you know, the floats. Show your personality, wow us of what you can do, but make sure the two are related, which is a challenge.
I agree. Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I'm thrilled to see where this season is going. I mean, just next week with the exploding models, like that's going to be something in itself because like last season when they did the exploding models, like they were like, you need to design it so it explodes a certain way. So I think the more different techniques we get to see and harder challenges and just different challenges, I think we'll really get to get a good idea of like how good some of these builders are, and when one of them does
Right.
get something that's right in their wheelhouse, like I just can't wait to see something that just blows everyone away.
I agree. Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Everyone's saying exactly what I'm thinking. I think the selection of teams is really great this year. There's a lot of chemistry, but yet a lot of diversity in style. So I just can't wait for next week.
Right. I think that they've really upped the ante with like kind of the way they're shooting it, the VFX, the stop motion has even got better. I love that there's a big family dynamic. They have siblings of all ages, couples of all ages, brothers, sisters, friends of all ages. I think that's just a really solid thing. They have father, son. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see where this goes. I think it's only up from here. And while I will say, in a way, you definitely know some of the teams that might, you know, be able to last longer, it also is part of the fun to see which of the teams that are kind of seem at the moment more bottom tier that could last longer along the way, either because they just get lucky, they build something correct. They maybe, for some people,
get
it's
better.
like they get better. They literally learn as the show
Yeah.
goes on, and I think that's a very interesting thing. People don't have to talk about a show like this. Is just that being under the pressure like this, and but at the same time being allowed to have this amount of Lego around you to work with. You know, you're not spending any of your own money. Definitely puts people in a new spot of learning and a new spot of
And there was
growing
that
as
team
artists.
that made it to the final 3 last season, which the whole season. Zach
Yeah.
and I were like, they didn't know each other as well.
The
They
girl and
struggled on
guy.
a lot of builds,
Yeah,
but they
that's
eked it
exactly
out.
who I
Yeah.
was thinking of too.
I was
ahead.
like, they were struggling for a while. I was like, I don't know, but they made it to the last episode, you know? All right, sweet. Oh, and guys, check what I got in the mail today. Daily Bugle.
How
So
long do you
for-
think that's going to take you to build?
I have no idea, but for everyone in the chat, I'll start building this live soon, and then I'll be doing a review. Who knows? It's huge. It's the tallest Marvel set they've ever made. How many pieces?
I can't wait to see like all the. I mean, obviously there's reviews up, but I can't wait to see like close-ups of all the minifigures because there's just so many. One of my friends is super into Marvel, and when I sent him like this set, he was like, "Dude, like."
3,772 pieces. I mean, yeah, this is definitely going to take a day or two. But we'll do community building. But okay. With that, 20 concurrent viewers, thank you for watching our first episode of the LEGO Masters Season 2 live after show. We'll be doing one of these every, I'm thinking Wednesday, just so that way we give people an ample amount of time to watch the episode on Hulu, Fox Now, or live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. But seeing as that means the show ends up wrapping around 9 p.m. for Christian and some other people, you know, it's almost past midnight by the time we'd be doing a show. But it looks like it's worked out for a good amount of people watching. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We're trying to do this pretty much weekly. And if you haven't been watching, go ahead and check out LEGO Masters. It's available on Fox, premieres weekly, and it's just quite an entertaining show. Again, like I kind of started, it's just great to see LEGO community, especially the AFOL community, the adult fans of LEGO, to be able to have the spotlight on such a big network show. I mean, it's just exciting, and it's definitely fun. Anything else to add, Thrawn or AllOutBrick, before we get going?
No, great summary. Can't wait to keep doing this. Like we said, mostly weekly. It's going to be a lot of fun, and LEGO Master Season 2 is only going to get better from here, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah, lots of hype. I'm excited to see how this pans out, and it'll be fun to see who ends up on top.
Totally. So again, if you're just tuning in now, we've been going for about an hour. So if you want, go ahead and refresh and start this video at the beginning. Share with friends, share with family.